Good evening, my name is Vanessa Mendoza, and to address the first question, how do you view your role in the education system and how might you work to affect positive change within the system? So I am not only an educator, I don't only view myself as an educator, but I also view myself as a mentor and a counselor, and I am the leading role in the classroom. So students are watching everything and anything I do, and part of my role would be to drift away from colonization. And decolonization is a factor that begins within, perhaps through a form of self-acceptance and self-love. And part of loving ourselves is accepting and valuing where we come from. So I think it is important to show students that part of decolonization is accepting where we come from and educating ourselves about our culture. And that leads me to my next question. What is your teaching philosophy, your educational philosophy, and how do you believe students learn best? So my teaching philosophy is centered, or rather focused, on progressivism, which focuses on how rather than what is being taught. It consists of learning by doing hands-on activities such as field trips, and planned lessons are also arouse students' curiosity. Therefore, I would say my teaching philosophy is student-centered rather than teacher-centered. And it says, share an example or an example lesson that highlights the effective components of a lesson plan, and these components would consist of a standard, an objective, an anticipatory set, assessment, and a closure. And my teaching content area, like I've mentioned, is about Spanish, revolving Spanish. So my standard for Spanish would be demonstrating an understanding of the general meaning and some basic information on very familiar daily phrases and topics, which in this case would be fruits, because fruits are almost a daily thing, a very common thing. And my objective for students is students demonstrate an understanding, interpret and analyze what is being taught, and they will use technology when appropriate to practice the information given. For my anticipatory set, I would bring physical fruits. I would bring fruit so they could try if they would like to. Completely up to them. Optional if they want to try fruit. And this will allow them to engage not only with what is being taught, but also as they're eating the fruit. And I feel like this will help them retain that information a little better if they remember the taste. And for the assessment, for assessing them, I will bring in a worksheet where they mix and match fruits. This will not be graded. This will only be for me to see where students are and to allow them to practice. So they're going to match fruits with the phrase. They're going to draw a line across whatever they believe the name of the fruit is. And as a closure, I will be doing a Kahoot. Personally, as a student, having been there not too long ago, I really love doing Kahoots and games. It was seen as something fun rather than another assignment, so I will make sure to include this into my classroom. And that leads me to my next question. How do you plan to effectively manage your classroom? Personally, adhering to a behavioral approach, students learn to exhibit productive behaviors because they are receiving favorable responses such as incentives, extra credit points, privileges, and they learn to stop negative behaviors because they know that unfavorable negative responses come with that. So this gives students the responsibility to know from wrong and right. This gives them an opportunity to attain more points, and this also teaches them that negative behavior will not bring very good things. And to address the last question, says provide examples of how you will develop students' critical thinking skills, social skills, emotional intelligence. Provide examples of how your class will be culturally responsive and engaging for students. So I think that allowing students to include their life experiences and cultures help students engage in the classroom because it is something that relates to them. And I would do this by allowing students to share with the classroom, create a project such as making a typical dish, such as teaching a sport, introducing a sport to the classroom, or any activity regarding their culture. Of course, this project will be presented in Spanish, will be shared in Spanish with the classroom. So, and they will also have the option to either present it in person or record it, and I will display that in the classroom. So that kind of gives them the opportunity to pick and choose whether they want to do video or whether they want to present in class. I think allowing students to bring in what they know, to bring in part of their culture, allows them to be seen, allows them to feel seen and heard in the classroom, which I think is really important because students spend over half of their day in school, or at least half of their day in school aside from home. So it should be a safe space where they are allowed to share who they are, where they come from, and allow them to feel safe in order to positively engage in the classroom. As a former student, I knew that that's something I would have liked for my teachers to do, which is allowing me to share my culture, my identity, everything of what and who I am. So as a future educator, I aspire to be that teacher that I needed growing up. And as I've mentioned before, I hope to not only be an educator, I hope I can be a mentor, a counselor, and their home away from home, somewhere where they feel safe to share where they come from. Because as I've mentioned, it is important to learn students to decolonize, that it is okay to accept where they come from, that it is okay to share where they come from, who they identify as, and what they are as a whole. And I really hope as a future educator this will succeed to not only their academic success but also as something they can learn and bring outside of the classroom, and they can teach their fellow peers. So yeah, thank you.